there are some people who do not know because they just move here. Sometimes they come with a valid visa, but due to the circumstances of the people they finally landed with or who they live with, they might find themselves within a human trafficking ring, a sex trafficking ring, or being forced to do work without being paid or being almost like a slave or a maid because all of their paperwork is taken away from them or they've overstayed their visa. And all of these people are using that status against them or using it to traffic them. So that is basically what this visa status is supposed to do. And to be eligible to apply for that status, as I said, you should be a victim or a survivor of human trafficking. So if you are a victim or a survivor of such a situation, and you are physically present within the US. So if, let's say, you probably went through what I'm describing, but fortunately you were able to get yourself out and leave and outside of the US, then this teen on immigrant status might not apply to you. So you have to be physically present in the US. And then you also have to be someone who is reasonably available to help and assist in the prosecution and investigation of what has happened to you. Because, as we all know, human trafficking, sex trafficking is a crime under the law. So, if somebody participates in it or if somebody um, forces you into that, and the appropriate law enforcement agencies get to know, for you to qualify for this status, you have to be somebody who is willing to step in to act as a witness or to report or to aid in the investigation or prosecution of the person who trafficked you or the people who trafficked you.
Guys, I welcome you live on SBTV International. My name is DJ Nyame, and today I have with me lawyer Abba. She's based in the US. I always been doing a program with her, and for the past, I think, a week or two, we've missed her on our channel. So today I have her with me. Lawyer, welcome on board. How are you doing?
Oh, I'm good, DJ, and you?
I'm also good. We miss you.
Oh, me too, DJ. Small weather.
Last week, I think 2 weeks ago, you have not been on
Yes,
the channel. Last
I
2 weeks,
know.
last week.
I'm
What
just
happened?
small weather sickness, things like that. But
So now you're feeling better.
I'm almost there. Oh, I'm
Uh,
there. I'm there. My
it is
voice
well,
is
it is
just a
well.
bit. Yeah, I'm getting my voice back, but
You are
I'm there.
recovering.
I'm recovering.
So next week by this time you'll be fit.
Oh, everything would have cleared.
Okay, lawyer. If it's your first time, make sure you tap on subscribe, follow us, so that every week I've been bringing her on board. She's based in the US. If you are in the US or you are outside the US, you can follow her. You can follow her on TikTok, Instagram, and Facebook. Abba_immigration attorney. That's her handle. Lawyer, I welcome you on board. So, what are we treating today?
Oh, thank you, DJ. So today, as I always say when I come here, most of my topics fall from the people who call who have issues. And so what I'm talking about today is another form of status that leads to a green card due to human trafficking, victims of human trafficking, sex trafficking, and especially labor in servitude. That is, you are being forced to work or not paid for your work. So there's a way to protect you under the law. So that's the thing I want to talk about.
Okay, all right. So over to you. Let's hear you.
Okay, DJ. Thank you. All right. So as I said earlier, today is talking about the teen on immigrant status. It's something that helps victims and survivors of human trafficking and sex trafficking, and especially labor, involuntary servitude, labor service, because people are being forced to work because employers know they don't have the right paperwork and they are threatening them and all sorts of things. So basically, that is what I want to talk about today. So for the teen on immigrant status, I might switch between visa and status, but it's more of a non-immigrant status. It was passed for victims of human trafficking, sex trafficking, and domestic violence. It was passed by Congress, basically to protect them, because there are some people who do not know because they just move here. Sometimes they come with a valid visa, but due to the circumstances of the people they finally landed with or who they live with, they might find themselves within a human trafficking ring, a sex trafficking ring, or being forced to do work without being paid, or being almost like a slave or a maid, because all of their paperwork is taken away from them, or they've overstayed their visa, and all of these people are using that status against them or using it to traffic them. So that is basically what this visa status is supposed to do. And to be eligible to apply for that status, as I said, you should be a victim or a survivor of human trafficking, sex trafficking, or labor trafficking. Involuntary servitude is not, you are not being paid for your work, or literally you are being forced to work beyond the required hours under the law. You're not being paid fairly or not being paid at all for the work that you're doing. And, you're basically being trafficked as a person. So if you are a victim or a survivor of such a situation, and you are physically present within the US. So if, let's say, you probably went through what I'm describing, but fortunately you were able to get yourself out and leave and outside of the US, then this teen on immigrant status might not apply to you. So you have to be physically present in the US. And then you also have to be someone who is reasonably available to help and assist in the prosecution and investigation of what has happened to you. Because, as we all know, human trafficking, sex trafficking is a crime under the law. So, if somebody participates in it, or if somebody um, forces you into that, and the appropriate law enforcement agencies get to know, for you to qualify for this status, you have to be somebody who is willing to step in, to act as a witness, or to report or to aid in the investigation or prosecution of the person who trafficked you, or the people who trafficked you, or that ring or that cartel. You have to be willing to help. There's, however, an exception to this requirement. If you're under the age of 18, or you are somebody who is still suffering severe trauma from what has happened to you, then of course this would not apply to you. Because, as we all know, being trafficked is a very psychologically, mentally, physically, it's just so hard. So there's not everybody who would be able to survive it in all of these realms. So if you're someone that has finally found themselves out or has been freed, but is at a point where they cannot rehash the trauma. They cannot come to court and face their accusers. They cannot be a witness. They just cannot even think about what has happened to them. So if you are suffering from severe trauma from from the situation and your trafficking and all of that, then you are released from this requirement in terms of the aiding and helping law enforcement to prosecute your traffickers. And then you have to demonstrate that you suffer extreme hardship, unusual and severe harm if you were removed from the US. You fear retaliation, because we all know some crimes are not just limited to people. It tends to be sometimes a whole community, or it tends to be a group and all of that. And if it's found out that you are the one who is now putting that group, yeah, testifying against them, being a witness for the government or being a witness for the prosecution, sometimes they can retaliate against you, especially if you are living within the same community. There can be some retaliation. So if you can prove that, if you are removed, then and even sometimes the retaliation can go all the way back to where you're coming from. So if you would suffer severe and unusual harm, then is this temporary status will be granted to you. In terms of the T visa, I tend to say it's really not a DIY kind of application. Fortunately, because it's in the realm of human trafficking, sex trafficking, apart from attorneys, there are a lot of organizations, there are a lot of pro bono, immigration lawyers who take it on in order to assist victims and survivors. So, for something of this sort, I would always encourage and advise that if you could find an organization or if you could find a lawyer who can take on your case and assist you in terms of the application, that would be good because it tends to be a bit specialized. So it's not even for immigration attorneys, it's not everyone who does a T visa just because of what is needed in order to put the application packet together. So in terms of the application process, there's a form that you need to complete, the form I-914. There's a form that you need to complete. And in addition to the form, you'd have to add additional documentation. So things like affidavits, things like medical records. And for people who are seeking mental health and seeing psychologists, psychiatrists, or any mental health team, they also would prepare reports for you as well as you having writing your own personal statement detailing what you've gone through and what has happened to you. But as I said, this is not an exhaustive list of what you need to add in terms of documentation. Every story is different. Every story would determine what documentation will be needed. But once you have someone in your corner who is assisting you to put your application packet together, they will let you know what you need to provide. And in addition to that, you also need a certification from either the Department of Homeland Security or any law enforcement agency, which is granting you the status as a victim of either the human trafficking, sexual trafficking, whatever you are in. It would grant you that status that you are a victim of that, and that you're also willing to assist in the investigation. The willingness, of course, is determined. That's also determined whether or not you're under the age of 18 or you're suffering from trauma. So if you are, then of course that requirements will not apply to you, as I indicated earlier. But you need that certification as well. The good thing about that T non-immigrant status is it allows family members to become derivatives. So if you are a spouse, a child, a parent, or an unmarried sibling under the age of 18 for the principal applicant, you may be eligible for a derivative status, basically meaning that if the principal applicant is approved, then you all also get approved for that teen non-immigrant status. And it applies to the people that I listed. Of course, being a derivative sometimes is also determined by the age of the victim or principal applicant and whether or not these family members are in present danger of retaliation. So, for example, if let's say you've been trafficked in I'm just naming a state, you've been trafficked in California, and you have a family member who lives in Missouri who has no relationship with you, or you have relationships, but really doesn't know what is happening with you, that family member cannot be a derivative of your T status or your T application. But let's say if all of you are within the same community, your parents, your spouse, your child are all within the same community, and now you're taking a stand against the traffickers or the people in terms of, let's say, even labor in servitude, involuntary servitude, where people do not want to pay you for your effort or your work, and you all live within the same community. And these people can retaliate against your siblings or can retaliate against your parents or your children because you are deciding to be a witness for the prosecution, then of course, these people, these derivatives are in present danger of retaliation. So they can become your derivatives under your T visa. So it's all fact specific based on what is happening to you. That is what would determine if, they would become derivatives or not. And some of the benefits, the T status has quite a bit of benefits. And one of it is it grants you temporary legal status for up to 4 years. So if you're worried about your legal status and your T application is approved, it grants you temporary legal status for up to 4 years. In addition to that status, it gives you permission to work as well. So you will get your employment authorization under the T once you've been approved. And also, you also are granted some public benefits that in public benefits and services. Because if for people who have already filed, who've been within the green card process, you know about the public charge and you not being a burden onto the government once you come in and become a permanent resident. So there are some public services that are not available to some of us green card holders. That's just because our sponsors have signed on to the fact that they're going to take care of us or they're going to sponsor us in our immigration process. But when you file under the T or you get approval under the T, some of these public benefits and services become available to you. And that's just because the law also recognizes that when you are trafficked and you get yourself out of that situation, getting back on your feet takes a bit of time. So some of these public benefits are available to you and will not go against you once you access them. And then there's the possibility for you to apply for your green card after 3 years of continuous presence within the T status. So if after you're granted a T status, you get out of the United States, move to another country because you know you have status up to 4 years, and then you stay outside for the next 2.5, 3 years. Come back and say, "Oh, yeah, I can get a green card after 3 years, so I'm going to do that." You would have broken your continuous presence, so that would not apply to you. So once you get your T status, you need to stay. You can travel back and forth. The T allows you to get a travel permit. You can travel back and forth, but you still need to maintain continuous presence within the US. And the other thing too, in terms of applying for the T, is the application for the form itself is free. So you don't pay for it. However, whoever will be your preparer or whoever will assist you might probably have their own set of fees, or they might do a pro bono and not charge you. But just know that if you're doing the application just on its own, the application doesn't have any fees attached to it. So that's the thing with the T. And I'm more interested in the T visa because sometimes we also do have employers who know that their employees do not have the requisite paperwork. And based on that, they are either threatening not to pay them or to call ICE on them or to get them deported and using them for free, basically. So if you're within a situation like that, you will qualify for a T visa just because it's labor trafficking in that sense. And the second thing I also wanted to talk about was the fact that not every US citizen or permanent resident can file a green card for you. There are some category of people for whom the law has stated that if you've been convicted of a specific offense, then you cannot just go ahead and file a green card for somebody else until you can prove beyond reasonable doubt that you won't be of harm to that person. And so, if it's any crime, sexual crime against a minor, someone under the age of 18, if it's sexual assault, rape, all of that, kidnapping of a minor, and you've been convicted. So you don't necessarily even have to go to jail. Even if your sentence is just probation, it still applies. So in meeting, I know some of us meet people, and our aim is not we are not just meeting the people because we want them to file for us. But over time, you would fall in love and then get married, and you would want that person to assist you in adjusting your status So just, I mean, have it at the back of your mind. When the dating starts, or right at the beginning, try and find out if there's something like that in that person's background. Because if it is, it really doesn't matter how far or I mean, long ago that conviction was. It could be 30 years ago, 40 years ago, it still applies. There's an additional hurdle. I mean, it can be done, but there's an additional hurdle, as I said, proven beyond reasonable doubt, which, I mean, people in law know is such a high standard to prove that you won't harm the person that you're applying for. So as we talk and as we come into contact with people, just have it at the back of your mind that there's no error just because the person is a US citizen. Is not that alone is not enough for the person to file for you. If they've been convicted of any of the crimes that I've stated, then there's this additional hurdle. It can be done, but just realize that there's an additional hurdle you would have to overcome before that process can take place. So today, quick education on T visas for human trafficking, sex trafficking, and labor trafficking, especially. And then also getting to know that when we have the aim of applying for a green card or meeting somebody to assist us, or, you know, after we've fallen in love, just know that if that person has that conviction in their past, it will come back to bite you in the process. DJ, thank you so much for having me today.
So, lawyer, thank you so much for giving us updates on this. You can contact lawyer Abba. Abba, her handle is Abba_immigration attorney on Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook. And also her numbers are on the screen, so you can call her. You can WhatsApp her. You can call her for further info. If you want her to follow or to work on your stuff for you, you can just contact her. Lawyer, thank you so much for this week. We hope to see you next week. Get well. You can mention your number again. Mention it, though your numbers are on the screen, but you can mention it again. And those who want to get in touch with you, get in touch with you.
Okay. Thank you, DJ. It's +1 815 860 4737. And the second one is +1 815 258 8727.
Thank you so much, lawyer Abba_immigration attorney. Thank you so much for this week. Guys, I thank you for watching. My name is DJ Nyame. If you want to come on my show, my numbers are on the screens. WhatsApp me or send me a voice note. Thank you so much. I'll thank my production team. Subscribe to our channel to get notifications. Share. Invite your friends to join us. Peace out.